So if you're like me, you've been hyped for the Cyberpunk TCG. I've backed the Kickstarter, I've watched some YouTube discussion videos, and I've been wanting to jump straight into playtesting the game. But with how far release is, tabletop with friends has been the only way. Until now. Providing a way to check out revealed cards, build decks, and test them online with your friends and randoms. This is the unofficial Cyberpunk TCG Sim. But first, if you're fat like me, you're going to want to check out these new deck boxes from Sleep Chief. This Sunday at 8 PM Central European Time, they're dropping not only the Instant Ramen deck box, and also the Chicken Nugget deck box. Don't eat them all at once. Now, if you do want to pick up either of these two deck boxes, do make sure you use code MARINE for a tasty 5% off. And thank you to Sleeve Chief for sponsoring this video. So this is a browser-based sim, there is no download needed, and this is the page you're going to see when you first boot it up. Of course, link to this will be in the description, or you can copy this URL. In terms of game options, you've got Hot Seat, which is like solo versus self-play, where you can test decks, or if you've got a homie round, but you can't be bothered to print off proxies. I guess you could use that for that. Or you can create a private room and then share that link code with one of your friends on Discord or elsewhere. And you can also create public lobbies to play against random players. But first, before we jump into any games, we do need to build some decks. As standard, both of the alpha decks will be available if you just want to jump into trying out the game, see how the game plays. And if you choose change deck here, you can choose between the Arasaka deck and the Mercs deck. But the Cyberpunk TCG Sim also has a fully functional deck builder for you to make your own custom decks. Now, a couple of caveats. In normal Cyberpunk TCG, your deck size is between 40 and 50. However, there's only been a few cards revealed, and it will probably be that way for a while. So currently, the sim allows for play with decks between 30 and 50. And you also have the option to turn RAM verification, which is your deck building color mechanic. You can turn that on or off. This lets you be a little bit more flexible with the cards that you want to experiment with, as we're all just playing for fun at the minute. In terms of options in the deck builder, over here on the left in the browse cards section, you can filter by what type of card you want to see. You can just choose gear if you're just looking for some gear, and they'll just bring up the gear. You can choose green, and then it will just bring up all of the green gear. Or you can just search by card name. If you were looking for Arasaka, and then this will bring up all of the Arasaka type cards, such as Adam Smasher, he's Arasaka, the Armored Minotaur, or you could even just search for Yorinobu, the name of a card, this guy. And in that way, it's pretty easy to find what cards you want, but it's also pretty easy to browse which cards are available if you don't know what's here. And when you do hover over a card, it's going to bring up the card in a blown up image so that you can read the card even more easily. The deck builder also counts your available RAM. You'll see here, I've just put in a few cards here. And you can see that this deck currently has 4 blue RAM and 2 yellow RAM available. And it will also highlight any deck building issues with your current build. So for example, at the moment I've only got 1 card in the deck, so it's saying, yeah, you've not got enough cards. But it's also saying that this card I've added, El Sombreron, it needs 4 red RAM. But I don't have any red RAM. So it highlights issues with your deck at the top. Which is nice if you're not 100% sure on the deck building rules. Now, one improvement that I think could be made is, in my opinion, the images are a little bit too large. I can't get, for my liking, enough of the card pool on the screen at once. And once you start adding in multiple rows of cards to your main deck area, you can't even see your whole main deck. I think this is a little bit silly because when you hover over the card, it blows them up anyway. So if this Arasaka Armored Minotaur was like a quarter of its current size, you could still hover over it to blow it up and read what it does. And I think if these card images were just a little bit smaller, it would make deck building a lot easier. And this isn't helped by scrolling in and or out on the zoom, as you can see. But this is just sort of nitpicking. This is a really very solid deck builder for this early in the game's lifespan. And it does create a very nice functional way for you to build your decks, as well as check out what other cards are available in the card pool. Now, back on the home screen, you can either choose to give yourself a player name, or you can log in with Discord to automatically connect your accounts. The sim has recognized and remembered my decks without linking to Discord through PC Restart. So I don't think that's necessary. But in the future, if the game gets more popular, we may need Discord integration. I'm not sure. I'm not a tech guy. And finally, let's just jump into a bit of a game so we can see how the game looks. But before showing you how the turns work, we're just going to take a look at a quick board state. Now, at a glance, in my opinion, this board state is quite clear. All of the different zones are very separated. Your hands down here. This is a solo versus self game, so I can see my opponent's hand, but obviously in a private game, you're not going to be able to see that. But you will be able to see how many cards they have. You can hover over any card to blow it up. And this is sort of what I was talking about in the deck builder. You can see how small the hand area is and how little room it takes up on the board. Because if you want to know what this Satori does, you can just hover over it and then read it. And I think that would be a nice improvement to the deck builder, in my opinion. If there's something I'm missing on that deck builder, do let me know in the comments. But I really like the layout of this board. Everything is so clear. You've got your legends here, your opponent's legends. You've got the trash. You can click on your opponent's trash to see what's in there. At the moment, it's just this one T-Bug. And our trash is empty. You've got deck size. And over here on the right, you've got a full changelog. So you can see exactly what actions were taken. In which order. So if you're a bit like me and you have a habit of sort of dozing off, checking your phone, you can always remind yourself exactly what's happened by reading through the feed. And also in this feed, you can type messages to your opponent, such as, hello, use code MARINE for 5% off, and subscribe. I think this is nice if your homie doesn't have a headset. You know, it's nice to be able to talk to your opponent, especially if there's like an interaction that you think might be a bug, but your opponent knows it isn't a bug. You could go, yo, do you think that's a bug? And then your opponent go, no, you just didn't understand it correctly. Here's how it's supposed to work. And we can all improve our knowledge together. Now, down here in the bottom left, you've also got trackers for your total gigs, which says here you've got 5 out of the requisite 6 to win the game. Your total street cred, which mine is currently 20, and my opponent's is 18. Look at their big dice. Look at my 1. What a treat. And you can also see exactly what dice have been rolled and what dice haven't been rolled. So in this example, neither of us have rolled our d4. And you can also see by the different colours that this d10 was my opponent's, because it's blue. I have yoinked that by an attack. Now, when you first start a match, someone is at random going to be chosen whether to go first or second. Your legends will be randomised and your initial hand will be drawn. And then you'll be prompted in the bottom right to mulligan or keep. And in general, I would keep an eye on this bottom right section. If you're ever not sure what sort of phase of the turn you're in, check out the bottom right, because it often will remind you what you need to do. A lot of the time, it's you've forgotten to roll the dice, you're too eager to start playing dudes or swinging, you just forgot to roll your dice. It's happened to me a good few times. First TCG I've played with dice, so it's a learning curve. But yeah, you can pick down here whether you want to keep or mulligan. This hand has a good few cards that I can sell for eddies. We've only got 1 unit, but maybe we can start flipping our legends. And just for the example, I'm going to keep this hand, and then my opponent is going to mulligan. So you see, they got a new hand, and that's the mulligan system in this game. You just get 1 mulligan, fresh 6, easy as that. Now, because we've chosen to go first things first. Ooh, why can't I play my card? You got to click 1 highlighted fixer dice. You get to choose which die to roll. I'm going to roll the D12, it's a nice little animation, and then I get a 1. What a treat. Now, it obviously won't prompt you for everything. You've got to know exactly what you can do on your turn. But I'm just going to choose to sell a card. Let's sell this Corporate Surveillance. And then for 2 eddies, I'm going to choose to flip one of my legends. Let's choose this one. And then we'll call the legend. Press the call button in the bottom right. And we've revealed Yorinobu. Cool. If I'd had more than 2 eddies, as you'll see on the opponent's turn, you would have to choose which eddies to tap to pay for that cost. Because there may be a reason why you don't want to spend one of your legends, for example. There is a card that specifically requires you to tap a legend. It's called Cyberpsychosis. Or a unit, but you can't tap a regular eddy for that card. That's what I was guessing at. So now that I've done everything in my turn, I can't do anything else. We'll just press the end turn button, which is over here on the left, which is a little strange given that everything else kind of happens in the bottom right. But it is what it is. And then we'll pass over to our opponent. Now they're going to start, they're going to roll their dice. They're more highly skilled than me, so they're going to get an 11. And then because they've got more eddies, because the player going second starts with all 3 of their legends active, they have many more opportunities to play different things on this turn. However, we don't have a big unit on hand, so let's just play this Evelyn Parker. And we'll choose to play her. She's a nice little unit to get down early. And then that's what I was talking about. You get to choose which eddies you want to rest for this effect. So let's choose these 2 to play out Evelyn. We also need to sell units or sell a card for an eddy. Let's sell this Reboot Optics. And then with the final 2, we can choose to flip one of our legends. Just like this. And then it looks like we've got Victor. So immediately the Victor search is going to pop up. And it tells you what action you're taking. What your choices are. You need to take 2 gear set cards from Victor Vector's search. If you want to check the board state, you can press hide and then go back. Check the board state. Well, what have I got in my hand? I've already got a Dying Light. That's a nice gear to have. And then you can go back to show cards and then choose what gear you want to take. Now, we can only take the Karoshi Optics. None of these other cards are gear. So we'll choose to take the Karoshi Optics. Select that. And then press done. Because we can't take the rest, they're going to go to the bottom of the deck. And then we're going to pass back to the player who went first. Now, we restand all of our dudes. We've drawn a card, which is this Emergency Atlas. And now what do we need to do first? We need to roll the dice. Let's roll the D10. We're going to do... Wow, incredible. Now let's showcase how gear works. So on this turn, I'm going to choose to play out my Emergency Atlas with my 4 eddies that I have available. Then we're going to sell Satori, Sword of Saburo for 1 more eddy. And then I'm going to put Mantis Blades on my Emergency Atlas. So it's very simple. You press the Mantis Blades, you press the equip button, then you choose a target. And it goes on the Emergency Atlas. And then this number in the bottom right will be updated to a 9 on the overview. So you can tell that this Emergency Atlas is currently being buffed by the Mantis Blades. Really nice and clear. You won't make any mistakes with that. It's a good system. I love the UI of this sim. Now, there's not a lot else we can do this turn, so let's just pass it over to our opponent, who's going to roll their die and draw a 3. Now, player 2 has done their turn, and we're going to go into the attack phase. So currently, the only unit that can attack is this Evelyn Parker, and she cannot attack this Emergency Atlas, both because it's really large and it would be really stupid, but also because it is not rested. So the only option available to Evelyn down here is Gig Attack. So we're going to choose that. We're going to choose Gig Attack. And then because we have the Karoshi Optics equipped, we're going to get to look at one of our face down legends when we attack. You're going to click on which one you want to look at. So we've looked at the middle one, and this is V. Cool, so now we know that V is here, and that means that we know our 3rd legend as well. So you can get a little bit of value out of these Karoshi Optics with Evelyn's attack. And now, once you attack, your opponent's going to have the chance to respond. If you have any way to respond to this attack, such as calling a legend, you will have the option down here in the bottom right. However, right now, we have nothing we can do. We've just got to pass, and then Evelyn's attack will go through. And then the player 2 will get to choose which of these dice you want to steal. Let's take the 1 to rub salt in the wound. And then after you attack, we're in the attack phase, you can no longer play any cards. And that's it for player 2, so we're going to just end the turn. Obviously, play will continue from there. Look at that, I rolled another 1. What a treat. But I'm just going to show how attacking units work. So when you attack units, we click on this Emergency Atlas. You have the options down here, like I said, for either Gig Attack, which is attacking your opponent directly to steal dice, or just attack. So if we press attack, then you'll be prompted to select your target. Obviously, the only target right now is Evelyn. Let's attack Evelyn. And then Evelyn's player has nothing that they can do, so they'll have to pass. And then Evelyn and the Karoshi Optics are both destroyed. And you can click on the trash to check what exactly you destroyed. Now that's the basics, but if you are interested in a full gameplay demo, check out my new channel, MrMaChONaCHOMan TCG, where I'll be publishing all future Cyberpunk videos that I make. Currently, I'm aiming for around 1 video a week with either some gameplay on the sim, maybe a discussion video if something interesting happens, but we'll see how we go. I'm not committing to anything. But do check out that channel, which will be linked in a card on your screen and in the description, if you are interested in seeing more Cyberpunk content from me. Overall, the gameplay at a glance is just really well streamlined in this sim. It makes the game nice and approachable, the board state is so easy to understand, and gameplay actions are snappy and responsive. I haven't not had anything that's been too confusing about like the ordering of events and how gameplay itself works. Of course, it is worth mentioning this is a fan project and it's free. As a result, I'm sure you will find some bugs when you play the game, but I would encourage you to join the Sims free Discord server. There you can report bugs, you can find opponents, and you can chat with fellow Cyberpunk fans about cards, about decks and such. I think the only feedback I had was what I said about the deck builder. I think the images are a little bit too big. That's not quite as clear as it could be. But for how early this project is through the lifespan of the game, this is already crazy. When I saw this linked in a different Discord, I was like, oh, let's check it out. Let's check it out. It must be pretty rudimentary, but it seems really well made already. So massive kudos to the dev team, led by a Storm Inside, I do believe, for their incredible work on this project. It's already awesome. And with more eyes on this, we can iron out the bugs and make an even better sim for people to start playing the game on. I will say at the moment the public lobbies are not exactly popping because of there's not many people playing, but I'm hoping that this video will get more eyes on this sim so we can have a larger community of players and get those public lobbies working, because when you can play against randoms, it's so much easier to just jump into a few games and having to organize them with people through third-party sites like Discord. I think the sim has a lot of potential. It's already in a really well-made spot, and this is currently the best way that I've found to play Cyberpunk TCG Online. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. By the way, drink of the day was a cold can of Red Bull. What a treat.